Hey, welcome to the Gig Life podcast. I'm your host, Stevie Taylor. No mucking around today. Let's just rip in. This is episode 122, and I hope you enjoy my conversation with the legendary Powell. I think we're rolling. Powell, welcome to the Gig Life podcast.
Thank you very much. Man. It's an honor.
It's good to have you here, man. Now your first name, can you help me pronounce that? Is it? Can I have a shot? Can I give it a crack?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it Patou?
No. Patou.
Patou. Okay. Right. So
Pat.
Yeah, I know Pat. Yeah, I've just seen it through all my research and stuff.
Yeah. Patou's actually my nickname.
Oh right, okay,
right?
So okay.
So what it is, it's a Jamaican name of an owl. Right?
Oh wow, okay.
A particularly ugly owl. So when Jamaicans hear it, they all fall apart laughing, you know.
Right.
But what it was about was me sneaking out at night. My sisters call me Patou because I was the night owl. So
that's cool.
So that's where that comes from.
Yeah, that's cool. I thought because I got a note here asking what it means. It's probably got some deep history, family meaning.
Family definitely not deep. Not deep.
Yeah.
Right? If you see a picture of this owl, man, you have a heart attack. It's that ugly. It's ridiculous.
Okay, I'm gonna Google it now. It's gonna have
Google it up.
Quick look.
So Patou, right? And it's that owl in Jamaica. Got really, really big eyes. It's just scary looking, ugly thing.
Oh, fuck.
Fucking
look at that. Look at that.
Yeah.
He's a happy dude.
Nah, I generally don't show people those photos.
Okay. Oh, man. That's funny. Now, we met for the first time towards the end of last year when we were recording the 100th episode of the podcast, actually, and it was like a bass player's hang, and we were talking about Jaco Pastorius, and there was myself, Adam Ventura, Mark Costa, Victor Rounds, and Steve Hunter, and yeah, man, and we were in that first floor room, and you came and hung out with us at the end there. It was cool. It was cool to meet you, man.
Well, funny, second live gig I ever saw was Jaco.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, what's your Jaco story?
We can get to that later.
Yeah.
That was, I went to see Weather Report.
Yep.
And I didn't know anything about them, didn't know what they were like, nothing.
Yep.
And I went, I was 17, and it just blew my shit completely. You know, I didn't know how to describe it, how to understand it, nothing. I was just blown away.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And Jaco was a bass player.
Yeah.
You know, unbelievable. Yeah. I met Joe Zawinul about 30 odd years later and thanked him because it kind of changed the course of my musical life.
Right.
You know, seeing that gig, you know.
In what way? Did it change? Did it make you go and listen to different types of music? That kind of music?
It opened me up to jazz.
Yeah.
You know, and as much as I love other stuff, jazz plays a big part.
Yeah. That's cool, man. Now, I said.
Well, jazz funk. Yeah.
Jazz funk, right.
Yeah.
How have you been? I mean, there haven't been gigs on. So, what have you been doing?
I've still been recording.
Yep.
So I've done 5 tracks for the UK.
Mm-hmm.
3 of them for a charitable organization.
Yep.
And 2 for a band based in Swindon, like a rocksteady reggae band.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other things have been kind of remakes of glam rock tracks, you know.
Oh wow.
Which is really funny.
Yeah. So where does your voice sort of fit into that? That's a really interesting combination. You know, your deep soul voice in
Yeah.
a glam rock track, you know, because
Well,
when I think glam rock, I'm thinking of, you know, Whitesnake and
yeah.
like really, you know.
Well, I did a remake of Ballroom Blitz, right,
Mm,
by the Sweet,
mhm.
right? So of course I don't sound anything like those guys, right? So for me to do it, I've got to find a way to put my character in it, but have fun with it and still keep the vibe that it's got.
Yep.
So where I went was I went more kind of Rocky Horror Picture Show. So if you
Okay.
can imagine Riff Raff,
Yeah.
I kind of went like that way. So it was semi-theatrical, a little over the top, but then it meant that I could use my voice and still sing the song, you know,
Yeah. Right.
but with a different vibe, but with the same end result.
Yeah. You said, you know, a bit before we hit record, and we'll talk a little bit more about this a little bit later on. And I know you did, you know, you're part of the session scene and doing voiceovers and that kind of
Yeah,
stuff, and BVs on different things.
yeah.
Is that always kind of been your way of approaching those sort of things, like almost trying to find a character to get into?
No,
No, just
I
that.
know who I am.
You know who I am. Good on you.
I
That's
know
cool.
who I am,
Awesome.
and I've known who I am for a long time.
Fantastic.
But I love singing,
Yeah.
and I don't care if I'm doing backing vocals or lead.
Yeah.
I like vocal harmonies,
Yeah.
so I like the idea of lots of voices.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't have the voices to use, then I'll layer them myself.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy voices and the voice.
Yeah.
But I also am a great believer in being versatile.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I love soul and I love blues and I love reggae
Yep.
doesn't mean I shouldn't be able to sing country, rock,
For sure.
pop. And, you know, in my mind, if you're a singer worth your salt, you should be able to sing anything.
Yep. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. All right, let's roll back to your childhood and how it all began and where you originally came from, and let's sort of work our way, you know, into music and then
Okay.
to this point. So, can you tell us where you were?
Yeah,
where you were
well,
born?
my parents left Jamaica and went to England,
Mm-hmm.
and I was their first child born in England.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got two older sisters that were born in Jamaica, and myself and a younger sister born in England. I was born in the south of England. My little sister was born in the north.
Yep. So you're from Bristol, is that right? Did I read that right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit like what Bristol was like.
Bristol,
growing up in, and explain a little bit of
I lived in an area that was very close to the city, so it was very
Okay.
multicultural.
Yep.
So lots of West Indians. So I mean, like I didn't really have to deal with anybody but Jamaicans for pretty much the first 5 years of my life.
Mhm.
And then when I went to primary school, that's when you started mixing with other people.
Okay.
But the primary school I went to, it had kind of Italians, Polish, Hungarians, people from every island in the West Indies, literally, a few Africans, and then there were mixed race kids in amongst that. There were half whatever. So we kind of all grew up together. Most of those kids from our primary school, I'm still friends with now. You know, we still communicate. When I go back, we hook up, and we had each other's backs as well. So, because there was a certain amount of kind of racism and difficulties back in the UK back then. So I grew up in a neighborhood where, you know, like I often had to use my fists to solve a problem, you know, but I loved sports and I loved music. So I generally kept myself busy doing that to avoid getting in trouble. So say of the guys that I grew up with, half of us went on to college or university or learned some kind of trade or skill and did well. And the other half in and out of jail.
Okay.
Right. But because we all grew up together, there's no issue when we meet. You know what I mean? Yep. It's like the guy that was, you know, a thief was a thief, and I accepted the fact that he was a thief. When I see him, we'd eat food and drink and chase women, and all the rest of it. And then when it was time for him to go thieving, he'd go that way, I'd go the other,
Yeah. Yeah. What's the main sort of industry in Bristol, or what was it at that stage?
Okay, the main industry in Bristol at that stage, it was always a port.
Okay.
So it was very famous. So its main industry initially was the slave trade. So that was the first big port to bring African slaves through and onwards. And there's areas in some of the caves in the cliffs around Clifton and that, where the chains are still there, where they used to chain up the slaves, so that's pretty heavy. But it's the center of the aircraft industry. So British Aircraft Corporation is there, Rolls-Royce engines are there. It's the center of the microchip industry for the UK as well. There's also the Bristol car, which is a handmade aluminium car, is made there. They make like 6 a year, so it's like Aston Martin kind of vibe, I've seen one in this country and I've been here 40 years.
Yeah, wow.
So it's always been high tech, but it's also country because it's close. It's not a big city. When I left, it was like maybe 1 million people. So you could get out into the country in like 20, 25 minutes easily, A bit like when I first came here, you kind of like, you hit Cabramatta, go down Cowpasture Road, half of it was country.
Yeah.
Not now.
Yeah.
But
when I came to Australia from New Zealand in mid-90s, once you got, because I live in Northmead, Parramatta sort of area, and to head out towards Windsor, once you got to Norwest, it was a single country road either way, in and out of Windsor. Look at it now.
It was country way closer before that. It was Marion was bush.
Yeah, right.
When I came here, it was bush. Yep. They were only just starting to build there,
Yep.
So the whole of the Hills district was bush. It was like nurseries and market gardens and,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bristol's home of Blackbeard the pirate, I read.
Yep.
That's cool.
But it's also the home of the Wild Bunch. And out of the Wild Bunch you got Massive Attack. So Daddy G and I grew up in the same house.
Wow.
Right? So our mothers are very close friends. I went to school with Daddy G's older sister, because I'm older than him. But like we know each other well. There's Smith and Mighty came out of there. Portishead isn't in Bristol, but it's just down the road. It's just on the coast,
So do people call Portishead? Do they pull it into Bristol?
No,
they don't.
Portishead is Portishead.
Okay.
Right? And Bristol's got enough stuff going for itself. It doesn't need to pull anything else in.
Okay.
Yep. Tricky's from Bristol. So it's there's enough. Like I said, there's enough stuff there. Like I think there's Nellie Hooper from Bristol that ended up in Soul to Soul, or worked with Soul to Soul. And who else was out of there? It'll come to me.
Yeah,
but
good.
There was a particular nightclub called the Dugout. I used to DJ there before Daddy G and Ronnie Size and Tricky DJ'd there, because I was older than them. And there were guys that were DJing there before me that set that pace,
Yep.
And the guys that I DJ'd with, 3 of us formed a vocal group, ended up with a 5-man vocal group in Bristol around about 76, around about there, 75, 76. And we did kind of Motown covers, so Four Tops, Temptations, Gladys Knight songs, so we did stuff like that. But I started drumming when I was 9, and I was learning for like 10 years. I did that until I was 19. And then I stopped and I started singing. And the main reason was because at the time I couldn't sing and drum at the same time. I'm like, I can do it now. I can do backing vocals now and drum, but my drumming chops are gone because I haven't played for like 30 odd years, except for a couple of gigs that I've done in the last 3 years, where if Declan Kelly's on the gig, you go, oh, Pat, get on the kit, you know, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, you know, I'm holding a groove, but I'm too afraid to play a fill and too afraid to leave the groove, you know?
Yeah.
But
there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Nothing wrong with
it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
For sure.
But it freaks me out because I don't want to lose it. But it's something that, you know, like if I had a kit and I got back into practicing again, it would be a nice thing to do.
Yeah. Cool.
But I love singing too much. That's the problem.
That's cool. Let's just roll back a little bit before the DJ thing and talk about music in your family. Was your mother and father musical, or your siblings?
Not really. I got an uncle that was a drummer, and my grandfather played harmonica and banjo. Mom and dad could both sing, but they generally didn't. I only heard my dad sing once, and I was blown away. But they met dancing. Dancing was their thing. So there's always music because they needed music to dance to. And my ear lent towards the singers. Having said that, I love a good instrumental just as much as I love a good vocal track. So, you know, it's if the music moves me, music or no music, it moves me. That's it, done.
When was the moment that you decided that you wanted to be a singer?
You know what? I spent most years thinking I want to be a drummer. Then when I hit 19, I got an invite with some guys that I used to DJ with that said, "I'll come along and have a jam." And I had such a good time. I went, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. But I still never thought seriously about it at that time, you know? Now, I ended up leaving England, and that's when I got serious about singing, really. You know, when I was in England, you know, I grew up in the days when it was like, learn a trade, son, you'll be fine for life. And so I did that, and music was a thing you did on the side, you know? But I didn't do enough gigs on the side to make me kind of think any more of it. And it wasn't easy to get a gig anyway in the UK back then, you know? So it wasn't until I left and I went to West Germany that that changed, you know? But, you know, it's there were key gigs that I saw in England that obviously planted seeds in my head, you know what I mean? Where I didn't understand that at the time, maybe, and I didn't realize how much of a hook that was going to end up being. But I can remember, you know, like those kind of light bulb moments where you see a show and you just go, "Oh my God, that's incredible." You know, it just, and I was speechless. I didn't know what to do. And it was too big for me to go, I want to be like that, or I want to do that. Or it was just, wow, you know, this is amazing. So, you know, I mean, yeah, and I saw some pivotal gigs.
Just so you talked about doing a trade first, because I was very much on that side of things too, and that's how my mum and dad brought me up. They said, if you want to go and do other things, you do that after, but it's trade first, and it was like that for me and both my brothers. What was that trade that you did?
I'm a first class welder by trade.
Yeah, right. So
I've got City and Guilds of London.
Yep.
And I've got an R4 in welding from West Germany. And I also did steel fabrication and steel fabrication.
Yep.
But I did atomic hydrogen welding, TIG welding, MIG welding, stick welding, vertical, overhead, you name it, I did it. The only thing I never did was underwater welding,
right?
Which I wanted to do.
Yeah.
You know, and I've worked on massive projects in Europe, here. I worked on all the big turbine blades for the Electricity Commission. In the early 80s. I built all of them.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
You talked about those pivotal gigs.
Yeah.
So can you name those? And
okay, the first one's Stevie Wonder.
Okay.
So that was 1968.
Yep.
And I was 10. And my mother was a psychiatric nurse. And I knew that she could get patients. If we took patients to a gig, we could get free tickets. So I convinced my mom to get us to take. So we took 5 patients that wouldn't have known where they were.
Yep.
Because they were all severely ill and in wheelchairs.
Yep.
And we wheeled them in to the front of the stage and watched Stevie Wonder blow me away.
Right.
You know, it was like, and I didn't know he played so many instruments. So I knew about the harmonica, I knew about keyboards.
Yep. And
then at one point he gets up and he goes around to the drum kit and I'm just like, oh my God, you know,
Yep.
And he plays drums too.
Yep.
You know, it was mind-blowing. It really was. Never forgotten it, never will.
Yep.
Then after that, I saw Weather Report. So it was a long time before I saw another gig. So it's like, 11 years or something like that. You know, oh, maybe not that long. 7 years before I saw another gig, right? I mean, I see Weather Report. That blew me away because I just didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
It was like you got this monster bass player, you got this nutcase keyboard player.
Yeah.
You know, you got Wayne Shorter.
Yeah.
You know, it was just an incredible band. You know, it was Alex Acuna, Ayrton Morales. You know, it was mind-blowing. So then after that, I saw Earth, Wind and Fire supporting Santana.
Right.
That was like Earth, Wind and Fire blew Santana off the stage and no one had seen a show like it.
Right.
You know, it was like you're in the dark and then you just hear this throbbing bass and you're just going, oh my God, this is pumping. And then the lights slowly come up, there's nobody on stage, right? And then all of a sudden the lights come up a bit more and Verdi White is floating in midair, right? Just hammering the bass. And then he floats down to the stage and the band come out. Oh, it was something else, you know?
Awesome.
And like Santana were just lame in comparison.
Yeah.
And they were not a bad band. They were a huge band at that time.
Yeah.
Then I saw, then I saw an Atlantic label road show. So that was Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, the Jimmy Castor Bunch, Benny King, and Sister Sledge. Right? And that was like 4 hours of complete joy.
Yeah.
Right? That was mind-blowing. And then the last gig I saw in England before I left was the Parliament Earth Tour, which was Parlay, Brides of Funkenstein, Funkadelic, and then Parliament. That was 4 hours.
Yeah.
Right? It was, again, we hired a coach from Bristol and drove up to London, saw them at the Hammersmith Odeon, and they tore the roof off that sucker. They really did.
Yeah.
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 Unbelievable gig.
Yeah. Did you still have drummer's eyes at that stage, or were you sort of starting to?
I think I was starting to think more
of
singing.
Yep.
Right. By the time I hit Parliament, I was definitely leaning more towards singing.
Yep.
You know. So I was 19, I think. So I saw all of those guys. Then I went to Germany, and I had a cousin there that wanted to put a band together. So he played bass. I sang, and we found a few, expat Brits, some West Indian, some Welsh, some English, whatever. And we put a reggae band together in Germany and did really well, did a few gigs. And then I entered a vocal competition, which I won. It's the only vocal competition I've ever entered. I'll probably never enter another one.
Yeah.
But I won it. And at the end of the night, I got the prize, and a guy comes up and he says, "I want to manage you." And I went, "Yeah, sure." So 2 weeks later, I was gigging with a dance group. So I had 2 girls, 2 guys dancing behind me while I sang, but you sang to playbacks, so I left the band because I could make more money doing this,
Yep.
And you would do like 2-3 gigs on a Saturday night. So I was still working as a welder in Germany, but working weekends, and each gig would be in a different town, but you only did a 1-hour spot. So you did your spot, bolted to the next gig, did that, bolted to the next gig, did that, and you made a shitload of dough. So it was a really, really good time. And then gigs I saw there, I saw Billy Cobham there. I saw Stevie Wonder again. I saw the Hotter Than July tour. I saw Stan Getz. That was great. I saw Peter Tosh, and I saw Bob Marley.
Cool.
So that's all before I came to Australia.
Yeah.
And I think the first year or 2 that I was here, I didn't see anybody because there was nowhere for them to play, really. Like the entertainment center hadn't been built at that point.
Yep. So what made you come to Australia?
Stupidity. Some people call it love.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway,
okay. All right. So you get here. Were you seeking out a welding job straight away, or were you thinking I'm going to try and give music a full-time crack at this stage?
Well, at this stage, I've now been singing in Germany, right?
Yep.
So I don't want to weld anymore, really.
Okay.
But my trade papers are what got me into Australia, because they didn't want singers. They wanted skills that they didn't have, and I had skills that they didn't have. So I came out here on that. I worked for about 10 months, and then got a band together and started playing, and that was that. So I arrived 5th of June 1981, and then I did my first gig, I think 3rd of December that year, right? And I kept working for maybe another 4 months and then stopped. And I just did music full time.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the scene like here in the 80s?
Amazing.
Yep.
Like the pub rock scene was amazing. It was literally every pub was a gig in every state almost. And the radio stations supported and promoted the live pub rock scene. So you got booked for a gig and you went there, you did it, you got a following, So I was playing to like 3,000 people at Selena's in the mid 80s, and getting like I got paid better back then than I do now.
Yep.
Right. And a whole lot of musicians, everyone that you saw, that you spoke to when I walked into your podcast at Lazy Bones would tell you the same thing. We were all earning better money back then and treated better in a lot of respects. It's a weird thing, but like the venues and the clubs back then were probably all owned by criminals, right? So as long as you had a blind eye and you didn't see anything, it was fine, but you got paid well and you got taken care of. And then that all got cleaned up and it became corporate. And believe it or not, the corporates are worse.
Mm.
They don't treat us with anywhere near the respect that we used to get treated by so-say bad people.
Mm.
But, you know, the difference between the two, the corporate and the crims, it's not that great. It's not that big.
Mm.
Not from a performer's point of view.
Yep, I understand. I do understand. So that band that you put together originally when you got here, what kind of music were you guys? You talked about pub rock. Were you going into the pubs to play?
Yeah, I was going into the pubs. I was playing reggae.
You playing reggae, mostly. Right? Okay.
Yeah, because what happened was I ran into a couple of guys, and funny enough, I'll tell you how my first band came about. It was weird. I got a free ticket to go and see UB40, right? At I think the Hordern Pavilion, right? And I liked UB40's first two albums, didn't really like them after that. Anyway, so this is a little while later, not blown away. Jojo Zepp and the Falcons were the support band, didn't think much of them at all, right? So I'm walking out and I see another black guy, he's from Fiji, he's a bass player. So we connect. He introduces me to a Barbadian singer, and we become friends, you know, because of that Caribbean connection. Meet up a couple of times, and we exchange numbers, leave it at that. One day, I'm at the Barclays Cinema in George Street City, which doesn't exist anymore, watching the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. So I'm sitting there in the dark watching the movie, and then there's an intermission, and they're playing all this great jazz funk that I love in the intermission that I haven't heard anywhere since I've been here.
Yeah.
So I've been here about 2 months at that point, right? Some guy comes up and says, "Excuse me, Mr. Powell, there's a phone call for you." And I'm like, shit, you know, I don't know anybody, you know?
Yeah.
So I get up, I go into the office of the cinema, and my partner has rung, and she says, "Oh, look, there's a party going on in Newtown, and Ronnie, who you met, wants you to go there. He wants you to meet some people." I went, okay. And I went, how did this guy know her? And she said, she rang him up and said, "Look, you know, I need to get a message to my partner." And he said, "There's 300 people in here. How could I possibly know?" She said, "He's black." And he said, "I know exactly where he's sitting." Right. So, you know, I was rare back then.
Yeah.
So I go to this party, and everyone in the band that I first put together is at this party. And we rehearse for a little while, do a couple of odd gigs. And then the first kind of paid gig is 3rd of December. You know, and then we played together for years. And then I moved on and joined a couple of other bands, you know. But I was always into doing different things and various things. I never wanted to be pigeonholed and locked down, which didn't help me in the 80s.
Okay.
It was fine in the live scene, but it wasn't great with recording. People wanted you to do one thing, you know.
Okay.
It would be like, "What are you into?" "I like it all." No. You got to pick one and focus on that.
We need the reggae guy on the books. We need the soul guy on the books.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I understand.
But you can't be all of them.
Yeah. Right. Far out.
Yeah.
Anyway, what was the reggae scene like? That around that time? Healthy. Okay.
There were a few good bands around. There was Untabu, which were around before I got there, and then there was Calabash. I had a band called Carib. There was another band called Shango. There was UB42. But there were other reggae bands around as well. And reggae, and also there were all the ska bands that had copied the two-tone thing, which I had missed because that didn't happen until after I left England.
Okay.
And I lived in Germany, and two-tone didn't happen in England. And then it got to Australia. So you had the All-Nighters and the Strange Tenants and the Leftovers and all of these ska bands. So ska and reggae was party music in Sydney. And it was in Melbourne, in key parts of Melbourne as well. So it was just party music. People would get down and go nuts, especially to the ska, because they related more to that up-tempo vibe than the slower reggae. But we used to have these. We used to have the Caribbean nights. Well, it was the Afro-Caribbean nights initially at Paddington Town Hall, and we'd pack it out, you know. And then we used to have like Sunday afternoon sessions in a church hall in Surrey Hills. So, you know, there was music everywhere.
Yeah.
Music everywhere.
Yeah. Let's talk about how you got into that studio, that session scene. Do you remember that? Do you remember that first session? And
you know what? I can't remember how I got the first session.
Okay.
But the first session was actually for an ad, a jingle, right? And I'm doing the lead vocal, but the woman doing the backing vocals is a woman by the name of Vanetta Fields. And I knew who Vanetta Fields was. And I was like, you know, starstruck, you know. And she was cool as just going, hey, look, you know, it don't mean a thing, relax, you know. This is a woman that sung with Ray Charles and was an Ikette, and, you know, just like, and she was Johnny Farnham's backing vocalist forever. You know, it was just consummate professional, amazing singer. Yep. And I'm in there and I'm going, they've got this the wrong way around. It should be her. And, you know, but she put me at ease and made me okay. So that was my first session, was a jingle for some ad, you know.
In the heyday of that sort of session stage, how many sessions a week you reckon you're doing?
I don't know. I mean, like, I would do 6 gigs a week without thinking twice about it. Yep. And in amongst that, there'd be like 1 or 2 sessions.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. So well, I'm just trying to paint a...
So the sessions were like, initially it was all either backing vocals. I did a lot of backing vocals for Sony Music female artists.
Okay.
So, you know, so I got used for that. And then I did jingles for ads and stuff like that, you know, where I would be often part of an ensemble. I wasn't often the lead in that, but I often did ensemble stuff. But I did do some co-lead stuff with Mark Williams, who you'd know.
Mm-hmm. I don't know Mark personally.
I know of him.
I've been in touch with him and trying to get him to come on the show. So,
but Mark is a beautiful cat, beautiful singer.
Yep.
And he was big at the time with a band called Boy Rockin'.
Mm-hmm.
And but when I first saw him, he was doing backing vocals for Renee Gayer, and he was amazing. Yep. You know, it was like just. But Levi's did a series of ads where they were redoing Motown songs, and Mark and I were the 2 voices used to replicate the Temptations or the Four Tops or whatever. So we covered all of that stuff.
Mm. Yeah, that's cool, man. That's cool.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah. You've you've gone on to play with lots of, you know, world-class international type artists and stuff. Yeah. And the first one I want to ask you about was touring with Kylie Minogue.
A dream.
Yeah, and I'm curious what stage of her career, because, you know, she's had different sort of...
Right at the beginning.
Right at the beginning, okay. Locomotion type?
Yeah.
Okay,
I did the first Australian tour.
Okay.
And then I did the first world tour.
Right. Was that your first experience at touring?
Internationally?
Internationally, yes. Yeah. I mean, besides, you know, you've obviously been around yourself.
So I'd been touring Australia for years at that point.
Right.
And how I got the gig because of her boyfriend, which was Michael Hutchence at the time.
Okay.
So I didn't audition for it. You know, it was just like, Pat, do you want to do this gig? Right. I was like, oh, yeah. So we had a meeting at a friend's house, and there was Kylie and Michael and another guy, Greg Pirano, that used to play for Hunters and Collectors. Mm-hmm. And I had a band up here called the Deadly Hume. So we met at his place and we sorted out what they wanted to do. My only opinion was, do I have to do exactly what's on the record? And they said no. And I went, okay, I'm in.
Okay.
So, but got well treated, did some amazing gigs. I initially, when we did the overseas tour, we were only going to do 8 gigs. We ended up doing 28.
Right.
Right. And
is that because it just kept building as?
Yeah, it just kept building.
As you went,
so
on. Let's book some more. Let's book
on.
Yeah, wow.
So I was away for like 4 months.
That doesn't really nothing happens at the moment, but I guess
I'll tell you what it was.
Yep.
What it was nobody had any faith in her, right? Because she hadn't done a gig.
Okay.
Right. What I'm going to say about Kylie is Kylie's not my favorite singer.
Yeah.
But she's a really hard worker.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because my favorite singers are like Aretha Franklin and Gladys Knight. And so there's no comparison. It's just stupid. But she sings well and she puts a lot of work in. If there's something that she didn't know, she would ask you because everybody else in the band had more experience than her. 2-3 days, she'd be doing whatever it was you told her. So she's dancing, she's singing, and she's doing a really good job. And she sings in key live. And that's all I care about, you know? So we would do an a cappella duet in her show, you know, because a lot of people would say, well, you know, was she like? She says, okay. Like she's not, you know, it's, you either like Kylie or you don't, right? And as a person, she's wonderful, beautiful, beautiful person. But it's like, you got to see the gig for what it is. I'm there as a backing vocalist, right? My job is to make her sound better. End of story. And it doesn't matter whether it's her or anybody else. You know, you go in there with your best voice and you make that person sound as good as they can possibly sound by, you know, like I've got a big voice, so I've got to pull back with someone that doesn't have a voice as big as me. But it's not my job to outshine the front person. It's my job to support and enhance the front person. And if you do that, one, there's a, you know, kind of a sense of professional pride that you get from doing that, from being able to do that. But also you stay in work, because if you're overshadowing the lead person, they don't book you again.
Yeah.
You know, it's about taking care of business, you know, and the business. When I'm singing lead, then I'm singing lead, you know. And I got to do that in her show because she would do a costume change, and I got to go out there and do a little spot for me, which was fantastic. It was good for me at the time.
Mm. That's cool. What opportunities came from that tour then? Because I'm sure.
Can you see that?
Oh, cool, man. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I had the booty.
What opportunities came to you from that tour? What
to be honest, most gigs that I did for the next 20 years have all been influenced in some degree by the fact that I did that tour. You know, and also, you know, like the other tours and the other people that I work with have enhanced that, but all of them have been at some point enhanced by doing that tour. You know what I mean? Like, man, I played Wembley with her, you know, it's like, you can't take that away. You know, 3 times, not once.
Yeah. Now, your voice, have you ever been classically trained at all? Ever been to lessons, or is it just something that's always come natural and you've worked up yourself? Just luck? Okay.
Just lucky, you know. Mm-hmm. You got what you got. Mm-hmm. But nah, I never got trained or anything like that. I did some voice therapy classes for a little while, but I did about 5 of those. But I've never had formal singing lessons.
Was that by choice, wanting to do it, or you just trying to maintain, or was there an issue with your voice?
No, it was about taking better care of your throat.
Okay, yep. And do you still take any benefits from that little short course that you did on that therapy, or did you think, no, I'm good?
No, look, you retain stuff.
Yeah.
Because some of it just becomes part of your daily routine. It becomes automatic, right? So, I mean, like, I don't do exercises every day or anything like that. I've been singing nonstop now for over 40 years, right? So there's a certain kind of thing that just happens. But I do warm-ups if I haven't been doing stuff for a while. I'll warm up a little bit before a gig. But I don't do anything massive. I don't do, like an hour of nothing. It's like a warm up for me is humming, on the way to the gig. Like I'll hum any song that comes on the radio or that I'm playing, And by the time I get to the gig, I'm warmed up and I'm fine. But I also, every now and again, I teach. And when you teach, that's when I kind of you go back to basics, especially when you're teaching beginners. So I have to show them what I expect from them.
I know exactly what you mean.
So that by default keeps me rooted, keeps me on ground level.
Yeah. Isn't it a kick in the ass? Because I taught drums for a while, and you and the whole teaching gig, it came as a total surprise to me. I was in my local music store, and the owner there, he had a studio up the top, and we'd played some gigs together. And he said, "Do you want to teach?" And I'm like, "What? Teach? Yeah, okay." Yeah. So then you've got to go away, and you need to work through what you know and come up with a way to explain it. And I was teaching students to read as well, so I had to go back and work on my reading. And you really need to know your own shit, don't you?
I'm with you. It's like, look, I never have to read, and when I did learn to read, it was drum music. Yep. Which is different, it is, so there's no chords, nothing in there, no notes. So it was like, okay, don't have to do that anymore. And then I would just learn songs by rote, So now, like if I've got to do a song by sheet music, it would be horrible because I'll get there, but it's so slow. I'd be like, the band would be finished before I got to the first bar, So it's just, I don't bother. I'm like, there's a side of me that thinks, I should go back and learn how to read again and practice it. But it's like, why? Yeah. I don't need to.
Yeah. So if somebody came up to you and said, "Can you just hum me an A?" Do you reckon you'd be close?
Nah, man. Nah. No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I have people way more qualified than me come up and say really nice things about me. I don't sing off key, and I don't,
no.
Stuff like that. But once I've got my first note, I don't need the band.
I understand. I know what you're saying.
I'm fine after that.
It's just those cats that have the perfect pitch,
Yeah, cats have perfect pitch. Usually make a big deal about having perfect pitch, and I think that's great, But move me.
That's it, move me.
It moved me. It's like I was in the car today, and Steely Dan came on. I switched the radio off.
Yeah.
I'm not a Steely Dan fan.
Aren't you? Right. Okay.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
They're soulless.
Yeah.
Well, they're technically great. But they're soulless.
Yeah, that's it. After that 30th take.
You know what I mean? It's like Parliament, Steely Dan.
Yeah.
James Brown, Steely Dan. Stevie Wonder, Steely Dan.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Steely Dan loses.
Yeah, gotcha.
For me.
Gotcha.
And I have a whole bunch of friends that every now and again we do a gig and I go, "Oh, you went to the Steely Dan School of Fun." Right? And they look at me like, "What?" And I go, "Nah, dude, man, like, I want to hear you play."
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like,
that's funny. Let's talk about the 90s in Sydney. I know from 95 onwards, what the scene was like, because I was part of the scene.
Mm.
The early 90s, what was that like here?
Well, the early 90s, you kind of have to start in about 88, 89, because what happened was dance music was starting to come into America, into here, from America. So there was like dance, there was house and techno and all this stuff starting to come in, and hip hop.
Yep.
So there was a band here called Lovetown, and their first singer was a guy named Miguel Ayesa, and he ended up doing musical theater. He now lives in the States. He's doing really, really well. And I came in after him. So Lovetown was Sydney's first hip hop band, right? The guitarist and the bass player were the driving force of that band. Now, the guitarist was Carl DiMattaga, who went on to become Guy Sebastian's MD. Like, he's a monster guitarist, great producer, unbelievable. The bass player was Steve Mostyn. Steve Mostyn went on to end up in America. He lives in America now. And he played for a couple of years with a gospel guy. I think his name is Chris Thomas. And Chris Thomas won an award or a Grammy or something.
Okay.
But then he ended up being Alicia Keys' touring bass player and producer. So a couple of years ago, he got nominated for Grammys for Alicia Keys, J-Lo, and somebody else.
Okay.
I'd say he's a monster. And then he came back a couple of years ago and he was married before, he got divorced, got remarried in Sydney, and I sang at his wedding. So,
wow.
But Steve Mostyn's a monster. Carl's a monster.
Is he a white guy?
Who? Steve Mostyn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he must have been, actually, yeah. Me and my wife went and saw Alicia Keys perform here in Sydney. It must have been,
he would have been playing bass.
He was playing bass, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember going...
Big guy with tattoos.
Like we were sort of up the top.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing him and then going away and Googling him afterwards. And
he's from here.
From Australia, yeah.
Yeah, and he's an amazing bass player.
Yep.
So we've just been reminiscing in the last week,
Oh, that's cool.
of stuff we did. We had a South African rapper that tragically died under suspicious circumstances at a train station. He got hit by a train, and it's believed he was thrown.
Oh, okay.
In an altercation or something like that, but we don't know for sure. But he's gone, and the band kind of broke up after that. But so I got into that scene. I also had always hung around with the blues guys, so bands like the Bondi Cigars and the Hippos, and so I would go to a blues jam, sing a couple of blues gigs, and then run off to do my hip hop gig, So there was this transition that was happening between, say, 89. So 89, I've done Kylie's first tour. 1990, I go overseas with Kylie. I come back, and I'm in a band an act called 10 Wedge, which is the 3-man vocal group. And
I saw one of your videos the other day.
It's Australia's first 3-man vocal group,
Yep.
So that hadn't been done or seen before here, So I did that. But I'm still in ska bands, funk bands, and reggae bands while I'm doing all of that. But 10 Wedge was doing most of the work, right? And Lovetown was doing hip hop as well. Lovetown was probably gone by about 93, 94 maybe. It was all over. I left them. 10 Wedge kept going from probably 90 to about 95. And then what had happened in that transition was a lot of hotels started to turn into restaurants, so a lot of gigs disappeared. So the big kind of pub rock scene with the big barn venues that had 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people, they were starting to disappear, right? 10 Wedge was able to perform in a nightclub as well as the venues. So some of the supports that we did were like the chimes that we did at Selena's in front of 3,000 people. That was in a venue. And then we did like Prince's after party at Metropolis in Sydney, in North Sydney, you know?
Yeah.
So you go from rock heads to club heads,
right.
and perform in both venues. So we weathered that transition really well. A lot of musicians didn't do too well because DJs were starting to come into prominence, where a DJ would be able to take over a Friday or a Saturday night in a venue, which was obviously cheaper for the venue than a band, and less hassle. So that's where they went. So bands were starting to get less and less gigs, and a 3-piece vocal band could go anywhere. So that's kind of how I survived through the 90s, was doing the vocal group thing. And also at the same time, I'd gone from doing jingles in the 80s to doing more voiceovers, and voiceovers actually pay better anyway. So I was kind of better off doing that.
All right, let's talk about 2000s then.
2000s. Well, the changes there, like I'm not gigging as much and I'm teaching more. Still doing lots of voiceovers, but the teaching is, I'm teaching at King Kids, which is King Kids, most of their kids ended up on things like East Street and Home and Away and stuff like that, but they needed to have a rounded kind of balanced repertoire. They needed to be able to sing, dance, and act. And then I went from there to Brent Street, and Brent Street is like big time, It was who did Hey Hey It's Saturday?
Daryl Summers.
Daryl Summers. It was his wife's business. She started that. I think it started as Dynamite Studios, and then it turned into Brent Street, and then she sold it and other people took it over, and I worked for them. So I did that for a little while.
That's like an academy or like a performing arts.
Yeah, it's definitely an academy. And they're based at Fox Studios now. So they're at, or the Entertainment Quarter or whatever it is, but it's there now. But I taught for them for a while. And I set up the vocal course at a place called the Learning Lounge in Taramara. I did that for 3 years. Still gigged, but I was teaching when I was gigging because I was a single dad at the time, so I couldn't really gig as much as I couldn't tour. I could gig in Sydney, but I couldn't tour because I had a little daughter to look after. So, because my daughter was born in 97, so, So touring kind of took a bit of a back step. I'm still gigging, but primarily in Sydney and not really going anywhere other than maybe up the coast a bit to Newcastle or, a bit further and back. And that was about it. Might go up to Byron now and again, but that was it. So it wasn't certainly by then, by the 2000s, I'd be relegated to doing maybe 3 gigs a week. As opposed to 6 or 7.
When did you record your first album? When I was looking on Spotify, it's got 2013, but I'm not. I don't.
The first album that I did was 2003. And that was a jazz album. Called King Powell.
Because sometimes on Spotify they'll have an album on there and it'll have a date on it, but it might be.
So 2003 was King Powell's, a jazz duet album. And then the next album that I did for me was 2018, right, which is called About Time. Now, in between that, there are albums by the Protesters. There's 2 albums by the Protesters, which I'm the lead singer and main co-writer of.
Yep.
All of that material. There's a stack of other albums that I'm on as well. Diesel and Dub, Declan Kelly. So there's 2 tracks on that I sing, but I didn't write anything on that. It's all Midnight Oil songs. So there's a whole bunch of albums that I'm on, but they're not under my name. And singles.
Yeah.
I'm on, like there's Paul Mac.
Which one?
Yeah, he's only had one number 1 hit. Was it Just a Thing?
Yeah, right. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, so I'm on that.
Cool.
Backing vocals on that. Yep. Margaret Ehrlich.
Yep.
Your compadre.
Oh, yeah.
Boy in the Moon.
Yep.
That was number 1. I'm on that.
Oh, right. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm on that. Jenny Morris, another one of your compadres. I'm on a couple of her albums doing backing vocals.
Yeah.
So, so I'm the guy that's everywhere, but you don't know who I am or that I'm even there. Yeah,
we do now.
Yeah, you do now. But I turn up in surprising places.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool, man. When I think of Lazy Bones and Marrickville, I to me, I instantly think of like a real thriving, was thriving and will be again thriving musical hub in Sydney. Can you talk a little bit about, Lazy Bones and some of those venues around and what some of those venue owners are trying to do and just talk a little bit about how that.
Okay, sort of well, in the last 2 years of lockdown, Marrickville Road has basically kept me alive musically.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got Lazy Bones, you've got Camelot, Django Bar, Gasoline Pony, and Butcher's Brew. Now, during lockdown, I've played all of those gigs. So I would rotate all of them and they would keep me afloat, so that I didn't go nuts. Now, Lazy Bones is owned by a music lover. Butcher's Brew is owned by a music lover. Gasoline Pony's owned by a music lover. So all of the venues in Marrickville are owned by music lovers or run by music lovers. Camelot's the same, right? Not every venue in Sydney is owned by music lovers. So we get back to this corporate thing where you have a lawyer or an accountant or, an ex-pharmacist that put together the gallery in Bondi, or Spring Street Social it's called now. But that was initially put together by a pharmacist.
Really?
Yeah. He ended up going broke. But, it's kind of, unless your passion is music, then you actually don't set the venue up properly. What ends up being is like a restaurant with music or a hotel that is effectively a restaurant with music or something like that, right? And it's that you're there to sell beer, not play music, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. Yep.
You're there to keep people kind of busy while they drink, right? Whereas places like Marrickville Road and, certain there are quite a few around Sydney, but you got to pick and choose them. Music's not the driving passion behind that venue. It's an aside. And that's frustrating for a musician because you don't have you're not on the same page really. You know, you're working together, but you're at odds with each other. Some people, it's all about money and ticket prices and bums on seats. It's not actually about entertainment. Whereas from a musician's point of view, it's about entertainment. Yeah, now sure, we want to get paid too, and we want to make money. But in the end, we want an audience that appreciates what we do. So if you have the ability to play at a venue that actually cares about you and what you do and how you do it, then you tend to give that little bit more. So, I'll do a deal with most of the Marrickville venues that I won't do for any other venue in Sydney, right? And the main reason for that is when push comes to shove, those venues will call me back. So my first gig back after this lockdown is at Lazy Bones.
Yeah, it's on Tuesday, right? Isn't it? Tuesday?
No, Friday.
Oh, Friday, sorry.
So Monday's the first gig back. I'll be there anyway.
Yeah.
Right. I'll probably be there on Wednesday because another friend of mine who I support, Hammerhead, Jason.
Yeah, he's been on the show. Yep.
He'll be there.
Yep.
So I'll go there to support him. You know what I mean? He's supporting me. I'm going to support him. So it's kind of, but we all have dialogue with the owner of the venue, and the owner's gone, right, we need to get this kicking again. What can you do for us? And we go, well, what can you do for us? And we sit down, we talk it, we nut it out, and we come up with something that works for all of us. Now, when Lazy Bones first started, he wasn't paying decent money, it was crap. And we said, well, okay, we'll come in here and we'll do this. When things get better, take care of us. And he has done that. He has done that. It's about working together. It's about being a team or a family. It's like the musicians' fraternity, large as it is like a family to me. And I have family in every state in this country that I can share with, lean on. They can lean on me, and that's the beauty of it, and I have that in New Zealand as well. So it's not relegated to just here,
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your current band, the Pat Powell band. What's let's talk about the Pat Powell band, the whole sort of thing, and how that came about, and what sort of different incarnations of the band it's been over the years, and what you're doing now.
The Pat Powell band was about being able to do stuff that I wrote that I want to do when I feel like it.
Yep.
So then I had to do an album, and that album's about time. But the Pat Powell band can be anything it needs to be at any given time. So for argument's sake, I'll go and do a wedding as the Pat Powell band and do a whole load of covers. Okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's me.
I understand. Yep.
So it doesn't matter. But the Pat Powell band can go out and do originals all night as well. So just depends on the gig. I'm in another band called Irie Man, which is a rock steady band. It's run by a very good friend of mine, Ilya Sweck, and we do basically covers, but there's a couple of originals in there, and it's his band, but I'm generally the lead singer for that. We also have another band of his called the Groove Depot, which is more blues soul leaning, and he will play in the Pat Powell band or Irie Man, and we change the format to suit the individual gig.
Gotcha.
We don't get caught up in that. We want to play together, we dig each other, it's easy, and we pick the players to suit whatever we're playing on the day. The Protesters is a reggae band that I've got with another guy, Michael Brown, and that's all original. And that came out. It was Michael's concept that I joined him with. We're the main songwriters, but other people contribute as well from the band. But that band is essentially about human rights and social injustice, in a reggae vibe, because reggae lends itself to the cry of the underdog.
Yeah.
And then there's the jazz gigs. It's I do a lot of jazz, often with James Ryan or with Andrew Dickerson, or with both of them, or me doing them on my own, but it's again, it's more about Pat Powell is about entertainment, right? And someone will ring me and say, I need this. And I go, okay, I've got the band, I've got the network, there are enough musicians around that I play with. Like I said, when I met you that first time, I've played with all of those guys.
Yep.
And depending on the gig dictates who I play with,
Yep.
Steve Hunter's in a band called the Subterraneans.
Yep.
I sing for him quite regularly.
Yep.
It's one of the toughest gigs that I have to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's really gratifying when I do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You also do some Motowny sort of stuff, like Marvin
so
Gaye
kind of like
Kelvin and
those are the kind of revival kind of nostalgia shows that I do.
Yeah.
So I'm in the Dancing in the Shadows of Motown.
Yep.
But I'm also in the Marvin Gaye Experience.
Yep.
I've also got a Nat King Cole show which I run.
Oh, cool.
And I've got a Bill Withers show that I run. And I run the Bill Withers show with Justin DeLeo, the bass player.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the things that I do. But I also do some soul blues stuff every now and again with Liza Olbach and Kate Lush and Clayton Doley. So, now and again I do a double up with Rob Seuss, where we do a blues sing. I've got a band that I play with sometimes in Canberra doing blues as well. So it's kind of book the gig and we'll sort out how and who and what, the week before.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got that real hustle vibe when you need to.
No, it's, you know what? I've got a bit of a hustle vibe. I don't hustle like half of my friends do.
Oh, really?
Nah, man, yeah. I'm too lazy. Right? But by being versatile, then I'm able to jump into those things when they come up.
Yeah.
So, it's like if someone says, can you? It's always yes.
Of course.
Yeah. And I'll worry about it later.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I asked you to tell me a song, one song that's had the biggest impact on you. So what we're going to do now, I'll get you to introduce that song, and before we start playing it, tell us why that song. I think I know why now. Maybe I don't. Maybe I'm just being presumptuous.
well,
we'll see.
You got to look at where I was at the time.
Okay, all right, okay. So introduce the song and then we'll go from there.
Okay. The song that we're going to play now is My Cherie and More by Stevie Wonder. And I can't remember what year it came out. It was either 67 or 68. I think it was 68. Might have been even 69. I can't remember, but it's around there. But I was absolutely blown away by this song, and I would play it over and over and over again. And I love it as much today as I did when I first heard it. It's not a song that I sing very often. I've probably only done it about 4 times in my life. But there's just something about it that strikes a chord with me. Now, at this moment in my life, I don't actually have a favorite song or a favorite singer. There's too many, right? But when you're 10, you tend to be a bit more polarized.
Yeah.
You know, like when you're young and you're a kid,
Yeah.
and something will just stick with you and drive you in a way that it won't drive you as an adult. So when I say this is a favorite song, it was a favorite song because of that time.
Yep.
And what was happening in the world at that time and how it made me feel at that time.
Is there specific elements of the song that really caught you, or was it just the whole?
Nah, there's
thing?
like, it's just perfect.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that song
All right,
on any level.
All right, let's have a bit of a listen.
Yeah.
Summer day, my sherry, more distant as the Milky Way. My sherry, more pretty little one that I adore. You're the only girl my heart beats for. I wish that you were in a cafe, or sometimes on a crowded street. I've been near you, but you never noticed me. My sherry, won't you tell me how could you ignore that behind that little smile I wore? I wish that you were mine. La 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 la. Maybe someday you'll see my face among the crowd. Maybe someday I'll share your little distant cloud.
Yeah, magic, man, magic.
Yeah.
So a
Absolutely.
little bit of insight into the song. It was originally called "Oh My Marsha." Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, when he originally wrote it, it was for an old school girlfriend.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and then I think he took it to Berry Gordy and he went, nah, I've got to do my Berry Gordy thing to it, and
Yeah.
and the crew went about and they recorded it, and then he came in a bit later and then done his vocal part, and I think it originally came out as a B-side,
Yeah.
and and they ended up building a whole album around it, and I mean I think yesterday,
Unbelievable.
yeah.
Yes to me, yesterday.
Yesterday, yeah, that was the other song
Yes
on
to
that
Me,
album. The
yeah.
rest of them were
Great song, yeah.
kind of just fillers, but yeah, and listening to that in the headphones, which I haven't done for a long time, just now.
Ah,
you've
everything's just spot
got,
on.
yeah, and you've got the guitar on the left,
Yep.
you've got
Yeah.
the drums and the piano on the right.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? And the vocal and the percussion on
Yeah.
the right too. It's just that sort of the old way of recording. It's not.
And then how they
full
pull
stereo.
things up,
That's it. Yeah. Well, you just hear the congas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool, man. That's wicked.
No, man, it's Stevie. What can you say?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's trying to pick a song of his that you say is your favorite. Now I couldn't do it because obviously since then he's just done so much more.
Yep.
That I love as much as I love that.
All right, Pat. So you've got this gig coming up next week. Well, I mean, when this podcast's out, it may have already happened, but anyway, you got the first gig back at Lazy Bones.
Yeah.
Have you been able to plan a few things ahead of that?
I've got a gig after that. I've got a gig the next day after that in Roselle.
Okay.
But yes, I've got probably not much happening in October, but towards the end of November, I've got gigs booked. I've got gigs booked in December.
Awesome.
I've got gigs booked through January, February, March, April.
Oh, fantastic.
May. So yeah, I'm like, a lot of those gigs that I have lined up were for this year. And what I've done over the last couple of months is just shuffle them. Every time the lockdown's been extended, we've shuffled it maybe a month or 2 months or whatever we think is going to be viable. So I've actually got no worries about gigs coming into the future because they're already booked.
Awesome.
Right? Yeah. So, a lot of which were already booked, so we've just reshuffled them, but some new gigs have come in,
Yep.
Yeah.
Have you found that there's a lot of, I mean, I mentioned you before, you're a bit of a hustler, but maybe not as much as your friends or other people.
I have friends that are serious hustlers.
Yeah.
What it is with me is because I'm in a few bands, no one band is doing heaps.
Yeah, okay. But it's because you're in all...
So by being in a whole bunch of bands, one of them's doing something every week.
Okay, that's cool.
So basically, it won't take me long to get back to 2 or 3 a week.
Yeah.
And 2 or 3 a week, 3 gigs a week in recent years, and I'm saying like the last 10 years, is actually a good strike rate.
Cool.
Cool. Which I didn't think it was because of what I'd gone through before. But it turns out that, if you've got a steady 3 a week, you're actually doing okay.
You're doing all right. Okay. What I was getting to with the hustler thing.
Yeah.
I've heard it happening, and I know of people that are doing it, and there's people kind of going in now, really trying to get the gig and undercutting.
Yeah, I've heard that, but that's not a new thing.
No, I know it's not a new thing, but it's kind of at it seems like it's at a different kind of level now because people are really, really desperate to get in there and reestablish. Look, if they weren't established already by their talent,
Look, you know what? You get some young kid that's just come out of the con or whatever. They've spent all that time and money and effort learning to play really well.
Yeah.
And they need to play.
Yeah. Right? I'm not talking.
I understand them, and I understand your indie gigs and your pop bands wanting the gig and going, look, we'll play for beer or we'll play for nothing or we'll play for peanut. I understand it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
It doesn't, what they don't understand because they're so young or inexperienced is it actually hurts the industry in the long run.
Yeah.
Right. Now, the older guys like me, right, and I'm old, when I'm not going to go out and play for nothing anymore. It's just like you either want me or you don't.
Yep.
Right. And you want me at my fee or you don't. We can negotiate. Sure. We can work together to a common goal or a common end. Right. But don't insult me. I'm a grown man.
Yep.
I got kids. I got all the same stuff that anybody else has got to deal with. And I'm coming out to deliver, and I have a good reputation within the industry, and I want to maintain that.
Yep.
But to maintain that, I can't undercut myself.
Gotcha.
So if you don't want to pay my rates, go get the guy that will do it for your rates.
Gotcha, man. Yeah.
And I'll wait. Yeah. Because I would rather go out, get well remunerated, and walk away happy that I've entertained the people and I've done the right thing by them. They've done the right thing by me. The venue's happy. That's what I want. And if it means that I've got to go back to 1 gig a week or whatever, so be it. I'd rather do 1 gig a week and be ecstatically happy than do 10 gigs and be bitching and moaning about it.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And I wasn't talking so much about the young people, wanting to get their, first
Well,
gigs or whatever. I'm
well,
talking
well, the
about
older
there's established people out there, and
Well, the established people they're the same as me.
Yeah.
Like
not
and
some of the
we're all
ones. Some of the ones
Yeah.
I know they're not.
Well,
I wish they were, but
well, most of my friends, most of the people I play with, we're all around the same age, right?
Yep.
And we all support each other.
Great.
So if there's a gig that's new, someone will tell me about it.
Awesome.
Or if I find a new gig, I'll tell my friends about it. We book each other, we play with each other, we inform each other about good venues, bad venues, new venues, old venues, whatever.
Yep.
We all kind of look out for each other. Now, some people, depending on their mental state, are patient. Some people are not patient. Some people are good at dialogue. Some people are not good at dialogue. And with dialogue, it's you got contractual things that you got to negotiate for. If you don't ask for stuff, you often don't get it.
Yep.
So you got to ask. You can't be afraid to say, this is what I want. You can't be afraid to say no. It's like, if I say no to this gig tomorrow, I'm confident that I'm going to get another gig. I don't know when, but it doesn't matter. But I think I'm good enough to get another gig.
Yep.
And you have to believe in yourself. There's a certain amount of belief that you have to have in yourself to get up on stage in the first place.
Yep.
So if you've got the guts and the chutzpah to get up on stage in the first place, then you use that same thing to negotiate a fair deal. There are venues out that want entertainment and they want music and they want good players, right? And when they get the players that aren't good, and to be honest, I've only seen one bad band in recent years. I've seen bands that are not great because they're young and inexperienced, but you can see that they've got something, and you walk away going, yeah, give them 6 months, give them a year, whatever, they'll be kicking ass. And that's great. I love that, and you encourage that.
Yep.
But there was a band that supported me in, I think it was Wagga, right? And they were truly horrible, and it was like, I can't remember the last time I saw a band that I just went, oh my God, they're truly horrible. I didn't even know what they're playing. It took us like 20 bars to figure out what song they were playing, right? And the song was Play That Funky Music.
Ooh.
And usually you know what song
riff,
that is off the intro riff. Right? And I was there with like 10 other musicians going, you kidding?
Yeah.
Like, wow, okay. It was the quickest we ever packed up and got out. Just, but it's rare, I mean, like I have all the sympathy and all the support for people coming up.
Yep.
And I have even more support for my compadres that are like me. You've put 30, 40 years into this industry, 50 years in some cases, and you're plugging away. And you don't want much. You just want to play.
Yep.
But you don't want to be shafted. You don't want to be insulted. You just want to play. And, you do the best that you can. And you hope that the audience appreciates what you do. And most of the time, they do. I did a gig one time, and apparently there was one complaint, right? It was a sellout full house venue. And the venue got back to me about the one complaint. And I went, you serious? I was like, come on. I mean, like, you've got, I think it was like 100 and somebody, 120 or 130 people in there that all got off on the gig.
Yeah.
One person complained that I didn't do enough songs that they recognized. And I went, okay, well, they didn't say that I played badly.
Yeah.
They didn't say that I wasn't entertaining. They said I didn't do enough songs that they recognized. So be it. I can live with that.
Okay. Did you get rebooked?
Yes.
Yeah. So it must have
Many
been
times.
must have been that entertainment manager's first week or something, and he had to put a
Look, you know,
show
sometimes
his boss how cool he is. Like,
yeah, something like that. You know, and I've had in recent years, I've had one venue turn around and say, look, we're gonna cancel the booking that you have because we don't think it's gonna work. So I went, yeah, okay. So I went up the road to another venue and sold it out and did the gig anyway. You know, on the same night. It was like
awesome,
you know,
magic.
It's sad that happens, but it does happen.
Yeah,
and you have to deal with that. You got to roll with the punches. You know, it's not a perfect world. It's certainly not an easy industry to work in.
Yeah,
you know, there's good days, there's bad days. You know, I mean, like I've been in lockdown for I don't know how long now, and I've had worse times in music than this.
okay.
You know, so because for me, it's about whether I'm working or not. So I've had worse times with no COVID, right, where I haven't had gigs. You know,
that's really interesting. I haven't heard that point of view.
Yeah, I've had worse times
from everyone I've talked to.
So it's kind of like, yeah, okay, it'll come back. It'll be okay. We just got to work out how we deal with this.
Yeah,
you know, we got to work out how we live with it. Right. And once we work out how we live with it, the gigs come back and I'll be out there playing again.
Yep.
So, you know, it's like I ain't get depressed. I'm not upset. I'm not angry with anybody, you know. Well, that's not strictly true. There's a guy named Morrison that I think is a dick, but, you know, I shouldn't have said that. But anyway.
It's fine. I don't like him either.
But that's about it. You know what I mean? It's I think that if it wasn't for the individual state premiers, we would be in a worse situation than we are. And that's not to say that I'm loving the situation that we're in.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is I'm old enough to remember harder times. I'm old enough to remember tougher times. And I came through all of them. So I see no reason why I don't come through this and, you know, go back to where I was. And when I say where I was, nothing's going to be the same. It's going to be different. But the only constant in life is change. And I've weathered every change that's hit me in my whole life. So this is just another one. I'll work with it. It's what I do. It's like music saves me. Music keeps me afloat. You know, I don't get depressed because of music. When I'm joyful, it's because of music. When I'm sharing with people, it's because of music. So no, I'm not worried about anything.
Pat Powell, thanks so much for joining me tonight, man. It's been a real pleasure. Long time coming since we met last year to be here tonight doing this. Yeah, you've made my week, to be honest. It's
thank you.
It's great to hear your point of view. A lot of point of views I've heard have been, you know, all very, very negative. But yeah, I think you're a shining light, man, and I'm stoked I got to talk to you tonight. Thank
you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Right. You know, I did know of you because I've listened to a few of the podcasts, cool, you know, man. And I've enjoyed them.
Cool, man.
You know, because, you know, like something will pop up and it'll be someone I dig anyway. So it was like, yeah, cool.
Yeah. Awesome.
And I actually think you do a really, really good job, you know, and it's good for people to kind of get an insight of where we're coming from as musicians. So because I wouldn't do it for myself. So okay. I appreciate the fact that you're doing it for me and the fraternity that you and I are a part of, because I didn't know you played drums, but, you know, so it means you're one of us. So, again, you know, it means that the questions make sense. You know, the end product is something that everyone benefits from, listener and artist alike.
Well, thanks so much, Pat. Thanks
Pleasure,
so much, man.
Pleasure.
Talk to you soon, bro. Take it easy, and
I hope so.
I'll be out to see a gig soon.
Cool.
All right, see you, man.
I'll introduce you to this kind of stuff.
What's that, Jesus? What is that?
Single malt whiskey.
Ooh, lovely. Lovely. Yeah. Talk soon, Pat.
Talk
All right,
soon.
later, man.
Bye.
I've been howling at the moon, sniffing round your door, all to no avail. But there won't be no more off the lead. Baby, let me off the lead. I've been such a good boy. It's time to let me off the lead. Well, I haven't dug a hole, and I haven't made a mess. Ain't been chasing cats, and so you must confess off the lead. Time to let me off the lead. I've done everything you asked me, girl. So baby, let me off the lead. So if you set me free, I'll be on my best behavior, waiting by your side. Girl, I'll be your savior. All the other dogs, I won't let them near. Oh, baby, you got nothing to fear. Free, I'll be on my best behavior, waiting by your side. Girl, I'll be your savior. All the other dogs, I won't let them near. Oh, baby, you got nothing to fear. Miss Best Friend can be a woman's too. So give me a little leeway, honey. All the things I'll do for you off the lead. Time to let me off the lead. It's nothing you'll be regretting. So